Hi, we are here with Dominique Provost-Chalkley from Winona Earp. Hi, Dom.
Hello.
Thank you for joining me for Inside the Advocate. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Oh my God, it's my absolute pleasure. Lovely to see you.
It's good to see you. So I start all of these interviews because we're in such an unbelievable, unprecedented time. So I really just like to ask, how are you faring in the world?
Mm.
You know,
Yeah, thank you. It's such a bizarre time, isn't it? Yeah, there's nothing surer. I've been well, all things considered. I count myself incredibly lucky, and I have a lot of gratitude for my situation. I can imagine that there are people out there that have it much worse than me. So, all things considered, I keep bringing myself back to gratitude during these times. But of course, it's had its ups and downs and various different waves through this period of time. And I just can't believe that we're already like 3, 4 months into, COVID, or it just time has taken on this whole new meaning for me where some days feel like they are so long and then other days just we keep rocketing through. So yeah, time has taken on an entirely new meaning for me.
yeah. And where are you at the moment?
I'm in Calgary. Yee!
Oh,
Finally. Yeah, so I spent most of my quarantining in Montreal. I went back, actually, funnily enough, Winona took a hiatus break a few days before COVID hit. So we had sort of gone back to our respective hometowns or bases. And then, and it was, I think we flew the day after Broadway closed down. So just to give you a bit
wow.
of an insight as to where we were in the world around that time. And we were all saying that, there were some of us that were saying, okay, I'll see you next week, we'll be back. There's nothing to worry about here. And then there were other people who had a bit more of a spidey sense that this could be something bigger. And yeah, we went back to our respective places, and then we got the news that in fact our hiatus was going to be extended and extended and even further extended and further extended. And then yeah, that's kind of how it happened for us. But now I'm back in Calgary as of about 2 weeks ago. So finally we've had the news that we're coming back, and we're gearing up to start. Actually, tomorrow is when we start filming.
Well, your fans are going to be so excited that you're back.
Yes. I think it's fair to say that yes, there's going to be a lot of happy people out there, including
Right.
myself included.
Good. Well, yeah, I'm glad you're back. I wanted to start out kind of slowly. I wanted to ask first, what about season 4 can you share at all? I'm sure not much, but what can you tell people to expect from the season?
Goodness. Season 4. Eee! I can't believe it. I just can't believe that we've actually got here. Firstly, we've been through some hurdles, and now finally I just feel so happy we actually get to finish our story. Season 4 and continue and finish season 4, because obviously when COVID hit, just like, not another hurdle that we have to fight through. It feels like Winona has been through various different
which is
blockages along its journey.
It's so crazy to me that you've all had to fight so hard. The show is so fantastic on so many levels. It's just such a tight, well-written show that it's kind of shocking that it's not everyone in the world is watching it.
Oh, thanks, Tracy. That means a lot. That does mean a great deal. I think I really appreciate you saying that. I think I also agree. I think that the show is excellent and is written so well, and we have there's so many elements to it that I'm incredibly proud of. But I think some of the best things in life aren't necessarily recognized always, and I'm just glad that there are a group of people out there who are incredibly passionate about the show and have fought to get it here, and thanks to them, here we are continuing our story. It shows you the power of community in many ways. but yes, what can I tell you about season 4? Do you like how I just totally went in a different direction there?
Let me avoid this question.
Yeah, exactly. No, what can I tell you about season 4? In my opinion, it's Wynonna Earp at its best. Mm-hmm. That it feels like the show that it feels like the season that everybody fought for. You know, it feels like every single department, the writing, Emily, you know, the creator, all of the actors and all of the crew have ultimately brought their best foot forward because we were so close to losing it. And so we came back this season with such a renewed sense of gratitude for the fact that we were actually there making it. So it really feels like we've pulled out all the stops, and you know, it's been such an interesting journey to get here, and every season has been so different in some ways, you know, like it's been an evolution of Wynonna, but it feels like we're really coming home this season to all of the key core elements of what Wynonna Earp's about. And I think everyone's got a hell of a ride coming their way.
Great, that's exciting. So we chatted kind of offline about how we've met before. 2 years ago, you and Kat came on to the podcast that I did with my then colleague, Jessie, and it was wonderful. Such a great conversation. One thing I will say was it was prior to either of you publicly acknowledging your sexual identities.
Yeah, little babies.
I know. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit. Well, first I want to say one of the things you said, because I went back and listened to that conversation, and you said something about what you love about Waverly is how she walks in her truth, how she walks in love, and it feels very weighted now to go back and listen to you say that. So I wonder if yeah, I listened to it yesterday, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how Waverly kind of, if she did, helped you get to this place where you felt like you could talk about it publicly.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, I would be so interested to go back, and I think I'd be half terrified, quite honestly, to revisit parts of my past, because it's always an odd thing to do, going back in time and seeing your journey. But I think thank you for reflecting back some of the things that were said there, because they absolutely hold true today, and I'm sure that it would be a very interesting process to listen to some of the things that were said in those earlier conversations, because I do feel like I've come so far, and these few years have been so much growth and understanding has come my way, and I feel so grateful, as you say, that Waverly in many ways was the instigator or the catalyst for me to have the courage to address those parts of myself. And had I not been gifted this beautiful bisexual character to play, I may not have got to this place now. And so I feel, oh my goodness, I just feel so lucky. I feel so lucky. But yeah, so what can I speak towards? I suppose I came out on my 30th birthday this year, which was... Congratulations. Yeah. Thank you very much. Just as COVID hit as well, it was the most odd birthday I've ever had, because I was all geared up to have a big 30th birthday party, and people were going to be coming in, and some old friends and whatnot. And then slowly but surely, it was right at the beginning of COVID, so slowly but surely, everybody started, wheedling out, and then suddenly I was left on my own for my 30th birthday. So quite an interesting turn of events, really. But it, in some ways, I think it was really positive, because it gave me space to fully live this coming out that I had decided was really important for me to step forward in my truth and do publicly. Though I had come out to my family earlier in the year, it was sort of the last step for me was speaking honestly to the beautiful community that have helped me get to where I am. internally. But yeah, so I suppose I've always known. Do you want me to speak towards my sexuality, or what would you like? You can direct the conversation a little bit more.
Honestly, I think that your fans would want to know more about your journey, personal and, in line with the show. And I know you kind of spoke about how Wynonna Earp and having that opportunity to play Waverly helped kind of have this conversation with you. So I'm really interested in the kind of intersections of your personal journey and the one that unfolded on Wynonna Earp.
Okay, great. It's nerve-wracking talking about these things, but it's great because it's so important.
Are you okay talking about it?
Yeah, no, honestly, I knew that this was what I was, what we were here for, and I do feel very passionately about finding my voice in this world, this to represent queer, to represent my sexuality in a positive way. It's just that it's new for me, so you'll have to bear with me a little. But yes, so I deep down I've always known that I was queer since I was 9 years old, and over sort of my earlier years, I had a few experiences that were rather jarring and sort of discouraged me from continuing down that path. And so being a young girl who was incredibly keen to fit in and was very, very scared of being seen as different, I suppose, over time I suppressed that, and because I liked men and I fancied boys at school, I just took the easier route, I suppose, that felt the easier route for me, and continued, just pushing it down. And then, of course, over the years, I had a few moments and experiences where it would come up more, and then I would continue pushing it down, and felt this real inner turmoil, honestly, about what that means, and the fear that I might be a lesbian because I didn't have any representation of bisexuality in my life. So I wasn't aware that it was a spectrum and that we all sat somewhere upon that spectrum. I wasn't privy to those conversations, or I hadn't found that along my journey yet. So it just lived in my head. It lived in this slightly, dark, negative world of criticism and fear, ultimately. And so when I got cast as Waverly Earp, and I sat down and I opened that episode 2 script where I saw that Waverly was going to encounter Nicole Hort, it was honestly, I had my cup, I'll never forget it, I had my cup of coffee to my left, sat in this armchair in Calgary, and I opened the script and I was just like, oh, fuck. Oh my God. Okay, this is where I'm going to have to address this. This is where I have no choice but to dive in and listen, really. So that's where it started, and I was, I was nervous that I was going to fall in love with my co-star, and like all of these totally outrageous ideas in and around my sexuality, because it had been so suppressed for so many years. And I think that one thing I'm realizing now is that the more you suppress your sexuality, and the more which is such a key component of who you are, the less you have an ability to find and connect with who you are inside, because it's such a core component. So if you're shying away from such a key integral part of who you are, really, how are you supposed to have the conversations with yourself to know who you are as a person? So I was incredibly nervous, but also very excited in other ways to have an opportunity really to live this through another a character in a character's shoes, you know, which is such a mad, you know, a mad and magical turn of events, really. And I feel very grateful to the universe for having given me a big old push in the right direction. And then I suppose what came after was it was I won't dive too much into this, but it was a lot of this, a lot of, oh, maybe I'm not, okay, okay, well, now that I'm, you know, playing a character and like diving into what that feels like, and like this feels amazing, and I'm really enjoying playing a character, but it was very confusing, honestly, in my own mind. Found it very confusing because I was still only having the conversation with myself, right? I was still in my head.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that you went through that. I'm glad you got here, but I'm sorry that you were kind of on your own for so long, or felt that you were.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. It did feel like a very lonely time when you're in your head. I think it's always lonely and you're not able to express your truth to others and have those really important and integral conversations for growth, right? But then I was, as I say, gifted the most incredible thing ever, and started meeting the community through conventions, and was faced with really challenging but like life-changing moments that totally changed my perception around what it means to be queer and the beauty of it in such a safe space. So it was a real process. It was a process of checking in with myself throughout that process, and ultimately I got to a place where I also was suffering with very low self-confidence at the beginning of the show. I couldn't get my head round why I had been cast as Waverly Earp, honestly, and was just beating myself up a lot about my own place and my work and what it meant, and had a few bad experiences previously in the business that definitely held some trauma for you know, fear of losing character and stuff. So I got to a place where I thought, okay, I either continue in this business and I find a way to deal with my negative voice, the negative voices in my head, or I switch businesses. Like, there's two ways here, because I don't feel like this is allowing me to be my true authentic self. And so I went to Cambodia and I did a meditation retreat. And from then, really, I embarked on a journey to listening to my true authenticity and aligning my truth and the way that I live with my morals and my beliefs and everything else. So alongside that, meeting the fans and seeing all these things and really being very reflective and introspective, and then it's been a big journey since then of stepping into those shoes confidently and living that love freely, which is just incredible, really.
Great.
Yeah.
At what point did you decide that your 30th birthday would be the day that you made this public announcement?
That's a good question. When did I decide? I had posed myself the question of how I was going to come out, and I kept going back and forth about whether, you know, social media was the right platform for me, because I'm not hugely present on social media, but I wanted to reach everybody and find a way that felt authentically me, as well as being the best for everybody else, I suppose. And so I I was out one day here in Calgary, actually. I went out to a funny little blues bar down the road that is full of cowboys and such interesting characters. And I had gone out and I'd had a really, really great day, and I went there on my own, and I had just this incredibly aligned evening of conversations with people that was so inspiring. And I felt like I was finally being 100% myself. There just something clicked that night, and I spoke honestly about who I am and my experiences, and just met some really interesting characters. And I felt so inspired. I came back and wrote this. It all just flew out of me, honestly. I just wrote a big part about, how I see the world, really, and how I would like to see the world, and the world that I imagine in regards to sexuality and sexual liberation, and what it could look like. And maybe my contribution in many ways is to live authentically without fear, and try to be a positive representation of that for others. And so I wrote this big old thing, and then I said to myself, well, bloody hell, is that going to be it? Am I going to share this with people? Mm-hmm. And then I spoke to my team at Start the Wave, which is my non-profit organization, my little baby non-profit organization that I started. Yeah. And I said, I wonder if there's a way that we do this and actually we have a bigger effect. But how about we start encouraging people to also do the same if they feel called? So we talked about, in fact, it was Addie who had mentioned that previously to me, about having a platform where people could write their stories. So I said, well, I think maybe I could be the first person to set it off. Like I could be the first entry. And I think I'd feel comfortable with that, and that would be a way to make it feel like me at the same time as I was coming out.
So you started a wave.
Yeah, exactly. A big old rainbow wave.
I wonder, because Kat spoke openly about her identity earlier, and I wonder how that affected you, or how did you respond to that?
That's a really good question. It always felt it was a very overwhelming thing for me. Especially, I got to a point when I was in conventions and on panels and stuff where I was speaking about pride, about being proud. And I felt like a hypocrite, honestly. I felt that I wasn't, how on earth could I stand here as a representative of the queer community and not be living it myself? But I also knew on the flip side that we are all on our own journeys, and I saw a sea of people that were also, somewhere along their journey, and that if there was any community that would understand my place for not being ready yet and not being at the point where I could speak out about it, that they would be the ones, right? They would be the ones that would understand. So I kept going back and forth from these very conflicting ideas. And then I had heard about Kat coming out, and I was honestly just so proud of her. I was just and also, just in awe, really, of her courage and her ability to just speak really honestly and openly about it. And I've always been very inspired by Kat and her ability to speak so eloquently about things, and so more than anything, it was just a real sense of, I feel very proud to be stood next to her, and that there is this really strong, confident woman that is, again, paving the way in some ways for me when I am ready, and creating even more of a safe space, I suppose, to do that. So yeah, it's I feel very lucky to be playing the character with Kat.
Yeah, well, you two are so good together. I wanted to ask you about the fans and what sort of feedback have you received from them since you came out? Because they just must be so happy to have you as part of the visibility and representation, not just on the screen, but in real life.
Yeah, I have only seen positive things since I came out, which is amazing, and just really confirms everything I said previously about it being such a safe space, and I just feel even more proud to be part of this community of kind-hearted individuals that are so supportive and loving on so many levels. But yeah, some of the stories that have gone up on Rainbow Waves have just been really powerful, and I guess it just sort of confirmed that it was absolutely the right thing to do, and my place, I suppose, in that representation that you're talking about just confirms the necessity for people to speak out, even if it does require a lot of courage and a lot of strength. In living it and seeing the reactions, I'm so glad that I had that I did, tap into my bravery in order to do it, because the ripples that creates is remarkable, and I hope that they continue. I hope that people continue to feel inspired and continue to be living their truth, because this world needs people in their authenticity, regardless of how the world tries to oppress and suppress so many minorities.
Right. And I just want to know, how do you feel now that it's out in the world? How do you feel?
I feel half like liberated and amazing, and also like a baby gay who is trying to navigate this at 30 years old, and it's amazing in some ways. I'm some days I find that being a 30-year-old and coming out as a 30-year-old is a really positive thing, because I feel like my mind is in a very different place to what it would have been when I was younger. Had I come out then, I would have probably been a lot more influenced by other people's opinions and things. And as I say, like, I feel so lucky that I have a community that is so supportive and behind me. So I felt very much like I was in the right place and safe space to do that. But then, yeah, and my rational brain can I've figured out how I feel about a lot of the things in the world, and so like that feels really good. But then at other times I'm like, oh my god, I wish I had exercised this muscle earlier, I wish I had done all this when I was growing up, so that I didn't feel like I was reverting back to my teenage years and having to address some of the things that are going on inside of me as I open up to what it really means to be queer. Especially because we didn't have Pride this year. It was like, I wanted to be dancing in the streets. And
I know you could have worn the flag that's behind you.
Exactly, I could have, yeah, totally.
It's a journey. I came out a long time ago, and I'm still discovering things about myself. So, it's, I think no matter when, it's always a journey. And that's
totally. Yeah. No, you're so right.
I think that I have to wrap up pretty
quickly,
but I just wondered, is there anything else you want to say about Winona, or where you're at this juncture of the 4th season?
I don't think so. I don't think there's anything in particular that's pressing. But no, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, this has been my pleasure. I was really excited to chat with you because I had such a wonderful time before, and all this new information is so exciting. So,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
On coming out. And yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Take care of yourself out there.